We call it America's pastime, but are baseball's best days a thing of the past? Well, it all starts at the youth level, and Toby Motika is here with a look.
Jenny, when I was growing up, me, my friends, their friends, we all played baseball. But in the early 2000s, there was a huge dip in youth baseball participation, so much so that some were calling it the death of the sport. But what about today? And what about in Rochester? We take a look at the so-called death and possible rebirth of baseball.
I still remember it as America's game, and it's certainly my favorite sport.
But baseball's time as America's most popular sport seems to have passed.
I think there's definitely less kids, in my opinion, playing baseball than there was, let's say, when I was growing up.
Sutherland varsity manager Jim Capilupo says you don't have to look far to see the reasons why.
I think that's the #1 sport that we're losing athletes to, and there's also, unfortunately, a lot of specialization where kids are playing soccer year-round and other sports, AAU basketball.
Assistant Administrator to District 4 Little League Tom Baluco says he sees the exact same thing.
There's a lot more options for kids now. There's different sports.
League administrators in the city see an entirely different problem.
The kids have always been here. It was more just the opportunity that coaches and the adults in the area were providing for them.
So it sounds like baseball is dying, but what it looks like is something completely different.
What you're seeing today, again, is a result of a lot of work from a lot of people and people coming back to baseball.
Take the city of Rochester, for example. Once the adults got back on board,
the different baseball leagues have come together and said, you know, we have a mission here. Let's get more kids playing baseball.
The kids came running back.
We see kids, you know, coming up. We'll be practicing, and kids will come from the playgrounds, and they're kind of checking it out and seeing, you know, can I play? Can I play?
And now, across all 3 city leagues, including Southside, you're seeing the results.
In 2009, I believe there were 4 teams. And so each year we've added a few more teams, including softball. So now this year we're fielding 15 teams.
In suburban Rochester, a sport-wide rule change helped spark the fire.
Other youth sports have been doing travel divisions for many years, and Little League really didn't have that option. So about 3 or 4 years ago, they allowed us to do that.
And now, Baluco says, they can offer something for everyone.
For kids who are just there to have fun and hang out with their friends, they can play in a house league and they can have fun. For families and for kids who are looking for a little bit more competitive level of baseball, now we're able to offer that.
But as kids get older, they'll have to make a decision on what sports they continue to play. That decision is often made right around the modified level. But if you were expecting a big dip in participation, it's not happening at Greece Arcadia.
We had 40 guys try out for baseball, which is difficult. I had enough for 2 teams, and I had to get rid of a whole entire team.
Churchville Chi-Li manager Brian Lang came to this area from Lindenville, New York.
We didn't even have lacrosse out there, so we just had baseball and track. Those were the only options, and baseball was a thriving sport out there.
He was happy to see the exact same thing at Churchville, despite the strong presence of lacrosse.
We had huge numbers for our tryouts, and I expect that we'll have that year after year.
Those who want to take their game to the next level might go see Matt Dreyer, former professional baseball player and owner of Diamond Pro Athletics.
We are a specialized baseball facility that's open 12 months out of the year.
He's worked with plenty of young ball players from Rochester, players like Cito Culver, Chris Bostic, and Grant Heyman, all MLB draft picks.
Cito Culver across the diamond.
With the success that certain individuals have had in Rochester, moving on in their baseball careers, has given a lot of hope to a lot of young kids that Rochester, New York is a baseball town.
But none of this will matter in the long run if the kids aren't having fun.
My dad taught me to play it since I was 1.
That's awesome. So do you still like it as much as you did, or do you like it even more?
I love it even more. Baseball is just a really fun sport because there's a lot of action.
When I was 6, I started playing t-ball, and I don't remember why. I just got into it, and I started loving it.
Oh, you're like, yeah, flip the bat, take a nice little home run, trot around the bases. It feels great.
There really is nothing like hitting a home run, but let's be clear here. Baseball is not back where it was during its peak years of popularity. There are still towns and schools that have less turnout than others, but clearly reports of its demise were at least a little over-exaggerated, and the game is trending back up, Ginny.
The game's not over.
Not at all.
It's coming back. All right, interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Toby. These days, college athletic recruiting starts earlier than ever. But John Doss is here to tell us why we're seeing that magnified in lacrosse. Here now with a special report.
Yeah, Jenny, being a 13-year-old doesn't really come with many perks. You can't get your driver's license. Heck, you can't even get your permit. You can't even see an R-rated movie without parental supervision. But one thing you apparently can do, make life-altering decisions on where you want to go to college.
When I first started the process, I was looking for, who's sponsored by what and what am I going to be wearing? How many sticks do we get?
You can't blame John Lombardi for wanting to play lacrosse at a university with the nicest gear and the coolest jerseys. After all, when college coaches started calling the now sophomore at Irondequoit, he hadn't even enrolled in high school.
The Mad Rush came on, and we started getting interest from every college in the country. That was the dynamic. That was interesting because I wasn't sure what he wanted to do, and neither was he at that time. And it's a lot to ask an 8th grader or 9th grader to make that decision.
Lacrosse is the fastest growing sport in America, with 750,000 active players in 2014. And as the game expands at the youth level, so too is it growing at colleges nationwide.
Lacrosse has always been small, private, Eastern Atlantic schools, but now you got the bigger conference schools like the Big Ten coming in, and there's just more money there.
And as big schools begin to dig deeper into their pockets to furnish what they hope will be winning lacrosse programs, the arms race for talent intensifies.
They actually watch them this summer going into their freshman year.
Nobody in Western New York and few around the country know lacrosse recruiting as well as Kevin Martin, one of the founders of Rochester-based Sweetlax, one of the top summer lacrosse clubs in the country. Currently, he's got 11 kids on his elite 2018 team that have already committed to big-time schools.
It started with, John Hopkins, North Carolina, grabbing the kids. But it kind of escalated from there where the other guys felt, hey, they're losing these guys, these other schools, and they had to kind of jump in.
And so began the mad dash to lock up the country's most talented players as early as possible.
Hands free, the Cuse is on the board.
Which today could mean as early as 8th grade. Johns Hopkins, North Carolina, Virginia, Syracuse, Michigan, and Maryland have all began filling up their 2018 recruiting classes, with Hopkins and UNC already offering 11 high school freshmen each just this year.
Kids don't know what they want to do when they're 13, 14, 15 years old. They're more worried about where they're going to eat lunch at these club tournaments than the college coaches that are coming over.
And Pittsford Athletic Director Scott Barker knows not only has he seen youth recruitment ramp up from an administrative side, but he's also dealt with it as a parent twice.
My son Colby last year was summer of just completed his 9th grade year, and there were head college coaches that were no longer watching that age group, and they were watching at tournaments the 7th and 8th grade level.
I committed August before my sophomore year, and now I'm seeing a lot of freshmen committing already. I see 8th graders already visiting school, so I mean, it's ridiculous how early it is.
But the alternative, not committing early, can be scary.
They'll tell you at that point, hey, if you're not ready to commit, we'll move on to somebody else and we'll have a class filled up here pretty quickly.
The coaches say that they don't put pressure on you, but when I was going through it, like 2 or 3 of them did. I got like a 2-week deadline, like when I was getting recruited, so I had to figure it out, like make all these like college decisions as like a 15-year-old. So I mean, it was very stressful.
But in fairness, these coaches are taking risks too, offering young teens spots on their teams 4 years down the road. And many don't seem to like the new trends either.
Everywhere I went, they basically said, we don't like how early it is, but I mean, every coach is still gonna do it. You have to do it to get the best kids. So there's no way around it, really.
I think the thing that'll change is that when you talk to a lot of Division I college coaches, they recognize there's a problem. And I think what we need to do is, and what the coaches need to do, is look at what are some rules and regulations that we can put in place that allows for recruiting.
Yeah, but until then, until they come up with those rules, the onus will fall on parents and coaches like Kevin Martin at Sweetlax, who has made it a priority, not just to get these kids recruited, but to educate them about the process, about the school. So when Cornell, Syracuse, Johns Hopkins, North Carolina come calling to these 13 and 14-year-olds, they're as prepared as they can be.
Is there any end in sight? I mean, no one likes this, but who's going to be the first one to pull back, right?
You know what? You heard Colby Barker say it there. He says, yeah, the coaches may not like it, but they have to do it. If they want to get the best players, they have to do it. And as schools continue to pour money into these programs, Michigan and Ohio State don't want average programs. If they want to be good at lacrosse, they're going to be good at lacrosse. I think it's going to intensify even more. We might see even more pressure from kids younger and maybe even younger than freshmen in high school.
And shouldn't your education come first?
Well, that is something that they all did talk about. They all did talk about the pluses and minuses of you recruit or you commit early. That means you can concentrate on academics, because that's the other part of the deal. They have to keep up with their academics if they're going to get those scholarships.
All right. Thank you, John. Interesting. With the rising cost of college, many students and their parents look to athletics to reduce the price tag. Tonight, a look at how much money is really out there and what it takes to get it. Mike Catalana here with a Game Changers report.
Yeah, Jenny, there's a lot of numbers to look at. And if you are an athlete, a parent, or a coach of one or many, you hear about scholarships. So what are the things it takes to get a scholarship? Ability, academics, and persistence, to name a few. But even with all of that and a little luck, it's not always the total answer to the hopes and dreams of even the top athletes.
27 years ago,
Here's Greg Woodard with the nice move, the finger roll, and it's good.
Greg Woodard was making his own college choice.
Really came down to Villanova, Boston College, Syracuse as my top three.
Woodard chose Villanova on a full athletic scholarship. Now, closing in on 3 decades later, this father of 3 boys sees that the game of college recruiting in sports has changed.
Kids are starting to be recruited in grade school, early high school. So I think the biggest difference today is just how early the recruiting begins.
Just getting an opportunity to continue playing a sport at any level of college athletics is remote. According to the NCAA, just 6% of high school athletes play in college. And then what about the elite Division I level? Gary Gait was there as a college lacrosse superstar at Syracuse. Now he coaches the women's team at SU.
I think there's a real learning curve for high school athletes and their parents, you know, to understand how few kids make it to the Division I level. And certainly the scholarship opportunities are out there. You really have to educate yourself.
Athletic scholarships only come from the Division I or II level, and only 2% of all high school athletes ever receive any athletic-based money in college. But if you are that athlete or parent searching for the pot of gold from college sports, hit the brakes. Alexa Antetomaso has already beaten the odds as a Division I soccer player in the SEC at the University of Georgia.
And the first thing they asked me, oh, so did you get a full ride?
But the full ride, that's total tuition, room and board and books, paid by the university, is extremely rare in most sports like soccer. The former Webster Schrader star gets a partial scholarship at Georgia, like many of her teammates. The NCAA says the average dollar amount for an athletic scholarship is just over $10,000. And even then, it's not guaranteed.
Number 5, Alexa Antetomaso.
Actually, a girl on my team that tore her ACL and got hurt and didn't have the chance to play her freshman year, and the coach brought her in and actually took her scholarship away and gave her scholarship to someone else coming in.
So how do athletes and parents make up the difference? Well, just like other students.
And you'll look at some of these big programs, they get kids on their rosters that get more for financial aid than they do scholarship. You know, when you're recruited by Syracuse, the first thing you're asked is to fill out your financial aid form, because they only have a certain amount of money to pass out.
What the NCAA describes as head count sports are the 6 that do not split scholarships. Every athlete in these sports, which includes football and men's and women's basketball, are either full athletic scholarship athletes or they get no athletic money at all. There are full scholarships available, and Greg Hopkins of CTC tries to help Rochester area football players and their families find them.
The ultimate goal is to get these kids a college scholarship, to get them the opportunity. Now, once the opportunity is in front of you and I show you how to get it, where to go to get it, it's on you to achieve it.
Jerron Jones is the rarity. The former Aquinas football star is on a full athletic scholarship at Notre Dame.
Jones is a man.
Academics almost derailed him in high school. His message to kids: the game without the grades won't cut it.
I had that trouble coming out of high school, you know. You slack off in high school, and then, like, you know, you don't really understand, like, you don't really get the message until, like, you know, when your scholarship's on the line, that, okay, like, high school does count.
Todd LaRocca wants a scholarship too. The Bishop Kearney quarterback is heading into his senior year of high school. But as his father discovered, the scholarships don't come to you. Driving to camps, to clinics, to tournaments, to be seen really puts the onus on the family.
Very demanding. It's hard because coming into when my kids were getting older, we didn't know how to go about with this, how everything worked. And it's really demanding. We've always told, my wife and I have always said, if you get a D1 offer or you get a D1 scholarship, then we hit the lottery.
And we know how difficult it is to hit the lottery. Probably the best advice for parents we heard came from Greg Woodard, who began our story. He said, for all the work for kids, they need to get to a college, find the one that fits, the best place where academics are the priority. And as far as the sport themselves, he said, put your kid in the best spot to succeed and get out of the way. The only way to play at a college level is you have to love the sport.
The numbers are so much smaller, I think, than people would guess.
Yeah. And the point about the other money that's there, that's true for a lot of people. But I think the perception from a lot, and you heard Alexa say it in the story, the full ride, the full boat scholarship, that it's all athletic money is very, very difficult to get. Again, basketball and football, that's where that happens. In the other sports, it's partial. Academics is going to get you money, and certainly need is a big part of it too. But those full ride scholarships are difficult to get.
And then you hear about the rigor once you're in college. It's like a full-time job,
It's
right?
a job. It's a lot of work. It's very demanding. A lot of rewards too,
Right.
but it's certainly demanding.
Interesting report. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.